Good evening, everyone. Late Night Mega here, and tonight we are starting our journey with Blood Moon. Now, this little mini series or series is going to be a bit different because this time I'm showing you a deck list that I haven't even taken to an FNM yet. So, how this is going to work is this is my initial deck or deck list that I came up with, and we're going to see how well it does. And so each week or every time I make changes to this deck, I'm going to make a video. It's probably going to be about maybe 5 to 10 minutes of a deck tech. And we're going to see where this evolution takes us and where this deck will end up when we're all done. There's a ton of stuff and a ton of ideas that I have to try and jam in here some way, somehow. But we're going to start off by playing a deck with like 14 counter spells, because yeah, who doesn't love counter spells? So some other things I want to say about Blood Moons, or this deck, Blue Moon, is main idea is to be able to cast Blood Moon and Cryptic Command in the same deck. And so, I'm going to try and stick with a blue-red deck, but, a third color splash is also an option, but I want to try and keep it as much blue-red as possible. So we'll go through this deck, and then after I play this deck and decide what changes I'm going to test out for the following week, I'll make a video. I'll kind of go over like the matchups I played against, what worked well, what didn't work well, and things like that. So we have Lightning Bolt, Serum Visions. This is all pretty standard stuff. Spell Snare, we'll talk about this one, because I know this isn't typically a card that I use a lot in my decks, and I'm not normally a huge fan of it, but here, since we're just blue-red, we don't have like really good removal like Path to Exile or even Fatal Push, and that can cause some issues like against Tarmogoyf and Voice of Resurgence, so that's kind of the main reason I want to put Spell Snares in here. Also, if we're against a control deck and we want to play Blood Moon and disrupt their mana as early as possible, their typical counters against Blood Moon will be like Mana Leak or Remand, and Spell Snare takes care of those guys as well. Among, all the other stuff that Spell Snare hits. We're not going to go through all of that. I put the 3 Mana Leak, 3 Remand package in here from the Esper control that I did. I wanted to try these 6 2-mana counter spells again wherever I can find room for it to fit. And when we're only playing blue-red, there seems to be a decent amount of room to fit this stuff in. And then, of course, since we're playing blue-red, Izzet Charm is another main deck card. It can counter non-creature spells, it can kill small creatures, or it can even let us get rid of some extra Blood Moons as the game goes on, or even help us to find our Blood Moons. And we have 2 Electrolyze, again, more killing stuff, more drawing cards cycling through our deck, getting us to the Blood Moons that we need or whatever else we're looking for. Up on the creature side, 2 Pia and Kira Nalars. I've wanted to try them out, and blue-red deck seems like a good place to do it. Puts a couple flying bodies on the board, which is very important, especially when we're dealing with like Affinity or Infect. They've got the Inkmoth Nexus, Affinity's got the Signal Pests, and so these Thopters can harass them all day long. And Torrential Gearhulk. Yay, we finally get to run more than 1 copy of this card. Don't know if we'll bump it up to 3 or not, but I'm happy about it. And it just seems like a natural fit here for a blue-red deck. Going on down, we've got 3 Cryptics as well for more counters, and 2 Vidalcan Shackles. Since our mana base runs 10 basic islands and 2 Steam Vents, we've got... This is something I do want to try out. I've seen recent lists kind of move away from this. Maybe it is too slow. Maybe I'll find out kind of the same thing I did with my blue-black deck when I was trying it out in there. But it seems like a natural fit for the mana base, and it's kind of my answer to some of the medium or bigger sized creatures that Bolt alone might not be able to deal with. We'll see how well that works out as this goes along. Mana base, pretty basic. We've got 8 fetches. I don't own Scalding Tarns, but really, for the price of Scalding Tarn, the difference it'll make as far as our mana base is concerned is fairly minimal. It would let us fetch the 1 basic mountain, which could be relevant against burn or something, but most of the time I'm not going to be too concerned about it. Besides, all of these are going to be mountains after we play a Blood Moon anyways. So yeah, fetch out our basic islands. We're going to need at least 3 of those before we can cast a Cryptic Command underneath a Blood Moon. Desolate Lighthouse, if we don't have the moon going, or if we sided it out, because I'm sure there's matchups where Blood Moon's just not going to be something we need to keep in. This can let us, cycle through extra lands or extra other things and help get us to where we need to be. And then we've got 2 Steam Vents, 2 Sulfur Falls, pretty basic stuff. Sideboard, here's what I'm trying out. There's a ton of sideboard stuff that I want to try out. Engineered Explosives and Aetherize. Boggle seems like a really bad matchup for this deck, and from what I've seen and heard about it, it is, so I do want to have tools against them. And Explosives can also help us take out some bigger creatures, provided they have a mana cost of 1 or 2. I'm looking at you, Death Shadow and Tarmogoyf. Surgical's pretty standard. Dragon's Claw, the only life gain that I have in this main deck, and that's going to be one of the other things I'm looking for, is if I have enough ways to prevent damage and gain back life. Do I want Batterskull or Worm Coils in this deck as well? Somewhere in the 75. So, but in the meantime, this will be our sideboard card against burn. We just bring it in, we cast our red spells and we gain life, they cast their red spells and we gain life. So pretty good for us. We just have to watch out for Destructive Revelry, but we have Spell Snare for that as well. Counterflux, because I wanted to get these in the main deck, but we're already at 14 counters. How much more can I jam in there? So these will be in the sideboard because, well, I don't really want to play a blue-red deck without them somewhere. Being able to counter a Ad Nauseam and their Pact of Negation won't do anything, just makes me happy. Also good against other control decks, just to make sure that what you're countering can definitely be countered. Anger of the Gods, again, sweeping away tokens or small creatures, also gives us nice exiling, which is good against things like Voice of Resurgence and Kitchen Finks. 2 cards that I really don't like seeing played against me. At least not here. So yeah, that is the main deck. That's where we're going to start. Now let's take a look at some of the cards that I might consider for future testing and things like that, and things that didn't make the cut, at least in this initial list. Alright, so here's a list of cards in no particular order. We'll just kind of go over some of my thoughts on these, where they might end up in the deck, or why they may end up or not end up in the deck. Young Pyromancer can be another cheap token producer, potential win condition. Seems like a natural fit for a blue-red deck. Electro, this is a guy that I've always had I've always enjoyed him, and I don't know, would this be a good place for him? That remains to be seen, but it's an option that I'm considering, or at least looking at. Is it Static Caster? Another kind of staple blue-red type of card for Modern and Legacy and such. And the reason it didn't make the cut, at least right now, it was I had like a 25 card sideboard and had to cut it down, but I did have a couple of these in there, but I do have two main deck Electrolyzes, and I've got the 3 Anger of the Gods, and 2 Piankira Nalars, which can help make 1/1s, so my I feel like I'm pretty good. I should be pretty good against 1 toughness creatures, and shouldn't need the static caster, at least not at this point. Solemn Simulacrum, if I go with a artifact theme, where's my land here? Yes, Academy Ruins. That could go in the main deck as well, along with main deck Engineered Explosives. That might help solve some of this deck's issues that I come across. So that's an option I want to try. The reason I'm not going for it right away is I want to get used to playing Blue Moon. I want to get used to the mana base a little bit before adding, an additional land such as Academy Ruins that turns into a mountain under Blood Moon. I've already got the Desolate Lighthouse in there. I want to make sure that I can get the right number of basic islands. The really ironic part is when this card goes in and Explosives goes in the main deck, chances are Vedalken Shackles might end up getting cut for that. Even though Shackles could be brought back with Academy Ruins. But yeah, that could also go with Solemn Simulacrum, getting us stuff and drawing us cards. Goblin Dark Dwellers is an option to kind of pair with Ancestral Vision to draw cards. I don't know about that. I'm still not the biggest fan of Ancestral Vision. It is just so often where, it either gets remanded or disrupted somehow, and you have to wait 4 whole turns before you get to draw. When you do get to draw, it's amazing, but I want to start doing things now, especially in Modern, a format that tends to demand answers to stuff very quickly. And waiting 4 turns to draw some cards, not always where I want to be. Karanos, how this thing not even make it to the first 75? I don't know. But obviously it can go in here somewhere and be an alternate win condition. Good to resolve against control decks as well. Worm Coil Engine and Batterskull, I kind of touched on these earlier, bringing some life gain to the deck. Also goes well with Academy Ruins, so there's synergy abound here. Just some other random ideas I've been having. Rune Snag. If I find that I don't want 6 2-mana counter spells, but I want more than 3, I might look at throwing a play set of Rune Snags in there instead of the mana leaks and just see how that goes. And maybe I do need to cut back on the 2-mana counters in order to make room for some of this other stuff I'm trying to do. Molten Rain, another card I'm surprised that didn't make it to the original 75. I just don't know where to put it. But yeah, I can blow up their basics and make sure that greedy 3-color decks can't cast anything unless it's a mono red card. And it'd also be good to bring in some more hate against like Tron and things like that, where they're really dependent on their lands. Because you know what's going to happen to me. I'm going to be playing against Tron and not see a Blood Moon the entire match. That's the type of thing that would happen to me. Brutal Expulsion, we'll get back to that a little bit. Metallurgic Summoning is another alternate win condition that I wouldn't mind finding a place for in Modern. And it can just, it's just helping me take over the game when I play it in my standard deck. I really like this card. And Brutal Expulsion, get a 4/4 on top of 2 other effects. You can kill small creatures, and you can bounce stuff. You can bounce spells, too, while they're still on the stack. And so it's kind of a versatile card. I don't think it'd ever be more than a 1-of here, but it's still something to consider. It's both blue and red, so I will take a look at it. I'll keep my mind open for it. Hedron Archive. This could let us ramp. It could help fix our lack of mass card draw. Or we could even potentially ramp into like some big Eldrazi's or something. I don't know if I'm going to get that inventive with this deck. I don't know if we're going to get that far. with the ramping, or if I could find enough card slots to do that. Confirm Suspicions, I've enjoyed this as a one-of in my standard decks. Yeah, it's a 5-mana counter spell, but then we get to eventually draw 3 cards off of it. And it's felt really good in standard. It also feels really good if you're casting it for a second time off of a Torrential Gearhulk. So that's the thing to keep in mind. Another option is Platinum Imperium. Forgot this guy. So he would come along with Madcap Experiment. This would mean I wouldn't be able to play any Torrential Gearhulks or other artifacts, so that would be a separate testing from like the whole Academy Runes thing. But basically what this does, if we play Madcap Experiment and Platinum Imperium is the only artifact in our deck, so we're guaranteed to get it every time, it will enter the battlefield. We won't take any damage from the Madcap Experiment because Platinum Imperium will be in play when it's trying to deal damage to us, and our life total can't change. This could be another win condition. It could be another answer to potential burn decks, because I don't know how they deal with this. But other than that, I'm not entirely sure if I want to go this route. Also, I don't own any Platinum Imperiums, and they're like, I don't know, like a $20 card right now. So I'm not sure I want to make the investment just to test this idea out, but it is something else on the plate. For other sideboard choices, I did see a list running a Glimmer of Genius or a second Glimmer of Genius in the board. And, you know, instant speed, scry 2, draw 2, not horrible for 4 mana, but also gives us 2 energy counters. And so I'm wondering, would this be a way, along with like Dynavolt Tower and Harness Lightning, would we be able to generate enough energy and have the card slots to fit all of this energy generating stuff in the deck in order to make Harness Lightning help us kill bigger creatures that we might have a problem with? I don't know, but that's another idea that's kind of going around in my head. My initial reaction is no, that's not really going to work. It's going to take up too many card slots to be effective. And so then Glimmer of Genius would really just read, you know, a 4 mana instant speed, scry 2, draw 2, if we can't do anything else with the energy. And would that be good enough to include as like a 1 or 2 of for card draw? I don't know. The other things worth testing. Sun Droplets, if you know, I find other aggro decks that I'm struggling with, I want to have the Sun Droplets instead of the Dragon's Claws. That's an option as well. They're both 2 mana, so that'd be an easy swap to test. Roast, you know, could this be another answer to big creatures? Maybe it can kill Tarmogoyf, maybe it can't. It could kill Tassigars, though. I don't think there's any big flying creatures in Modern that, well, other than whatever random stuff we play, that I really need to look out for. So this could be an answer for big creatures as well. And Vandal Blast, in case I need more help against Affinity. These almost made the first 75 in the sideboard. Of course, these could also be any other sort of artifact removal that I want. And so those are at least most of the ideas that I've had spinning around in my head when building this deck. So we'll see where it goes. I'm not going to restrict myself to only testing this stuff, but this is the stuff that most stood out to me so far. And of course, we'll have new sets coming out and stuff too, so potentially new cards to be added. So we'll see where this evolution takes us, and I'll see you back here. Chances are what I'll do is I'll play at Tuesday Night Magic and also Friday Night Magic with the same deck list before I make any changes, plus I don't typically have a ton of time between them to sit down and plan out changes and such. So expect to see updates on this deck probably Saturday, Sunday-ish, and that will be the list I end up playing for the week. So I know this part's kind of going on long, but typically I expect these next evolutions to only be like 5 to 10 minutes tops. So this has been Late Night Mega, and let's go moon some people.